Have you ever heard of a battle where a modern Western army was decisively defeated by a seemingly less equipped guerrilla force? A battle that not only ended a war, but also triggered the collapse of a colonial empire and set the stage for an even larger, more devastating conflict? Today we're diving deep into the jungles of Vietnam to uncover the incredible story of the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. This wasn't just a battle, it was a turning point in modern history, a masterclass in strategy and a testament to the power of human will. So grab your gear, because we're heading back to 1954. To truly understand Dien Bien Phu, we need to rewind a bit. After World War II, France sought to re-establish its colonial control over Indochina, which included Vietnam. However, they were met with fierce resistance from the Viet Minh, a nationalist independence movement led by the charismatic Ho Chi Minh and his brilliant military strategist, General Vo Nguyen Giap. For nearly 8 years, the First Indochina War raged, a brutal conflict of ambushes and counterinsurgency. By 1953, the French were bogged down, losing public support back home, and desperate for a decisive victory to force the Viet Minh to the negotiating table on their terms. Enter the French commander, General Henri Navarre. He devised a bold plan, what he called le hérisson, or the hedgehog concept. The idea was to establish a massive, heavily fortified air-land base deep in enemy territory. This base would act like bait, daring General Giap to attack it. The French believed their superior firepower, artillery, and air support would crush any Viet Minh assault. They chose a location in a remote valley in northwestern Vietnam, a place called Dien Bien Phu. From the air, it looked perfect. A large, flat basin surrounded by hills with an airstrip. The French saw it as an unbeatable meat grinder. They were about to find out how wrong they were. Starting in November 1953, thousands of French Union paratroopers dropped into the valley, securing the area and beginning the monumental task of building their fortress. They constructed a complex of strong points with names like Gabrielle, Beatrice, Isabel, and Eliane, each a network of trenches, bunkers, and barbed wire. They flew in tanks, heavy artillery, and immense stockpiles of supplies. Confident in their technological superiority, French commanders famously boasted that the Viet Minh would never be able to get significant artillery onto the surrounding hills. They believed any artillery the Viet Minh did have would be quickly spotted and destroyed by French counter-battery fire and airstrikes. This fatal underestimation of their enemy would seal their fate. While the French were building their fortress, General Giap was orchestrating one of the most incredible logistical feats in military history. He accepted the French challenge. He saw the unbeatable base not as a trap for his army, but as a trap for the French. His plan was audacious. Surround Dien Bien Phu, cut it off from all land-based reinforcement, and then, piece by piece, dismantle it. To do this, he needed to get heavy artillery and anti-aircraft guns onto the very hills the French thought were inaccessible. What happened next was extraordinary. Tens of thousands of civilian porters, using specially modified bicycles that could carry hundreds of pounds, and their own sheer strength, began hauling heavy artillery pieces, ammunition, and rice, ton by ton, through dense jungles and over steep mountains. They moved mostly at night, under heavy camouflage, creating a hidden supply network that the French Air Force could never seem to find. They literally dismantled heavy cannons, carried them piece by piece up the steep slopes, and reassembled them in deeply dug camouflaged bunkers that were impervious to French airstrikes. The French were lounging in their unbeatable fortress, completely unaware that dozens of heavy guns were now aimed directly down their throats. On March 13, 1954, the storm broke. The Viet Minh unleashed a massive, terrifying artillery barrage that shocked the French garrison. The shells rained down with devastating accuracy, targeting the command posts and, crucially, the airstrip. Strong Point Beatrice, one of the key outer defenses, was overrun in a matter of hours. The French artillery commander, Charles Piroth, who had arrogantly promised to silence any Viet Minh guns, was so overwhelmed by his failure that he took his own life. The meat grinder had been reversed. The French were now the ones being ground down. The battle raged for 56 grueling days and nights. It became a brutal war of attrition, fought in mud-filled trenches that resembled the Western Front of World War I. The Viet Minh, under Giap's command, employed human wave attacks, digging an ever-expanding network of trenches that crept closer and closer to the French positions, neutralizing their advantage in open-field combat. The monsoon rains turned the valley into a quagmire, making life for the defenders a living hell. The airstrip was quickly rendered unusable, meaning all supplies and reinforcements had to be parachuted in, often falling directly into enemy hands. The French soldiers, a mix of legionnaires, colonial troops, and Vietnamese allies, fought with incredible bravery, but they were trapped, isolated, and being systematically annihilated. Inside the fortress, conditions were horrific. The medical facilities were overwhelmed, and wounded soldiers lay in squalor. Ammunition ran low, and morale plummeted. The promised American intervention, a potential airstrike codenamed Operation Vulture, never materialized. The French government was in chaos, and the garrison at Dien Bien Phu knew they had been abandoned. They were fighting and dying for a lost cause. General Giap, meanwhile, methodically squeezed the life out of the French positions, capturing one strong point after another. The final assault came on May 6th. The Viet Minh overwhelmed the last remaining defenses. On May 7, 1954, the French command post fell and the garrison surrendered. The defeat was an absolute catastrophe for France. It shattered the myth of Western military invincibility. The very next day, the Geneva Conference on Indochina began. With their main army captured, the French had zero leverage. They were forced to agree to a complete withdrawal from Vietnam. The country was temporarily partitioned at the 17th parallel, creating a communist North Vietnam and a non-communist South Vietnam, with elections planned for 1956 to reunify the country. But those elections never happened. The United States, fearing a communist victory, stepped in to support the South Vietnamese government. The stage was set for the Second Indochina War, what we know as the Vietnam War. Dien Bien Phu wasn't the end of the fighting. It was merely the end of the beginning. It was the battle that kicked France out and pulled America in, leading to 2 more decades of devastating conflict. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu remains a powerful symbol of how a determined, well-led force fighting for its homeland can overcome a technologically superior foreign power. It's a story of ingenuity, sacrifice, and the devastating cost of underestimating your opponent. It changed the world, redrew the map of Southeast Asia, and its echoes are still felt to this very day. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into history. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations of pivotal moments in our past. Let me know in the comments what you think. Was Dien Bien Phu the greatest military upset of the 20th century? Until next time, stay curious.